phone. Okay. All right. So I think we can proceed to the roll call
Lobsama,
here.
Jacobson,
Here.
DeYoung,
Here.
Rubel,
Here.
Keaton,
Here.
Helserman, here, Von Smith is absent.
Okay, so now we're gonna look at, are there any adjustments to the meeting agenda today?
Do the pledge of allegiance.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Pledge of allegiance, that's not on my list, Al, thank you.
Oh, sorry. I
pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do have just a simple correction. There was a typo on the next meeting date that's down on number 7 of the agenda. The actual meeting date is May 1st.
May 1st.
Yes, not the 3rd.
Okay.
Okay, next we have declaration of conflict of interest for any of the planning commission members. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with the topic today of the master plan? I see nobody coming forward on that. Next, we have public comment. Any person may be permitted to address the meeting of the PC. Public comments shall be carried out in accordance with the following rules and procedures. Comments shall be directed to the PC with questions directed to the chair. Any person wishing to address the PC shall speak from the lectern right here. We ask that you raise your hand on Zoom if you're going to make a comment on Zoom, and we ask that you state your name and your address. Persons may address the PC on matters that are relevant to the township planning and zoning issues. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same subject matter, excluding the time needed to answer a PC member's question. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. And in order to avoid unscheduled debates, the PC generally will not comment or respond to public comment. Silence or non-response should not be interpreted as disinterest. So we're ready for public comment. In the room first.
Raised hand by Heidi.
Okay, so Heidi, you may proceed on Zoom.
Can you guys all hear me okay?
Yes.
I just have a quick note. Randy should have given you some copies of some maps. I thought the master plan was really well done. I just had one concern because we didn't address playing in the woods. So I'd like to address that now. Since the Wild Wild West, people have been drawn to wheels. Something magical is hidden in the silent hills of
Heidi?
Williamsburg.
Heidi,
Yes.
Heidi, can you speak up louder, please? It's a little difficult to hear you.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I can turn you up. Okay, can you hear me any louder now or no?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
I'm sorry, I'm technically challenged. All right, I'll try to speak really loud. It's just a couple sentences, you guys. Since the Wild Wild West, people have been drawn to wheels. Something magical is hidden in the silent hills of Williamsburg. No matter the season, the trails never close. All kinds of sports and hobbies evolve and come to life in our silent hills of Williamsburg. The trails have no age restrictions, and your experience is endless. I sent a bunch of information to Randy about how many miles of trails there are to be explored by things with wheels. I was just a little concerned that and also possibly designating Williamsburg as a dark community. Talking about dark skies was also left out of the master plan. I forwarded everything to Randy. I have really bad storms here, guys, so I'm gonna have to sign off, but you guys have a really great meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? Okay, then we will proceed to our special meeting business tonight. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is to review the draft of the master plan and to make comments regarding any recommended changes or adjustments. I know when I went through it, there's numerous opportunities to point out some small clerical errors, things like that. I think tonight we would really like to focus on bigger issue type things and cover those first, because we can handle giving feedback on clerical errors like errors on page numbers, spelling, punctuation. Anything like that can be handled separately with just an email to Randy Milnick, the person that's managing this draft. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna just open it up. We've got our resident outreach subcommittee group people here, as well as members of the public. Anybody is allowed to share with us what thoughts they have. And I know some of you, I've asked you that had written comments already, have made copies of those. If you could just make sure we all have a copy of what you've written up, because some of those are quite detailed. And as a reminder, the template that was handed out ahead of time, if you can start your comment by referencing what chapter and page number, so that we can follow along and understand what you're saying. So with that, I think I'll have anybody in the audience here or on Zoom, if they would have a comment to share with us.
Tom McElway, live on Lakeside Trail and was a member of the ROS. And I handed out copy of what my thoughts were. It starts, the first one is page 64. I don't have the chapter. And it has to do with the issue of alternative energy. And the draft makes a mention that there were a mix of comments on the survey relating to alternative energy. And it also, of course, mentioned that the state has kind of taken over where those may be placed. But I thought that maybe being more specific about the extent of disagreement, down at the bottom there, under 3, number 1 says 54% supported alternative energy, but want to minimize the impact on the rural landscape. And 33% do not support alternative energy at all. So that's a total of, what, 87%. And I realize it may just be speaking against the machine, but at some point, if people
I'm fine. I'm muted.
are opposed and there may be some change, it may be useful to have that information in our master plan. Do you want to have me just proceed to my other
Yeah,
issues, or should we
Wait, so are there
discuss at
any
this point?
questions about what he has said regarding this? Mhm. Okay.
So what you're saying is you're just saying you'd like to see it more detailed as far as what the people said?
Right, and rather than stating quote unquote, there were a mix of comments, you might say
Right.
1/3 of people were completely opposed and about 50% wanted at least some restrictions. It may be easier to find this in the master plan a year or 2 or 5 from now than going back to the survey that was conducted.
I have one question for Tom. Now, the state, the legislature has kind of taken that out of our hands, right?
Right, and that was,
And so that is one thing that we're going to mention. We should know that we don't have authority to make those decisions.
right. that's included in that paragraph
Okay.
or
Okay.
comment
Yeah.
about alternative energy.
I think that's a good point because I think this might be more of a sensitive issue with our community for people that drive into Traverse with what we've seen happening in Acme Township. I mean, we saw how they mowed down every tree in sight. I haven't seen an aerial photo yet, but it looked pretty bad from the drive-by.
My second concern or thought was on page 78. In the goal 2B specific states, rezoning agricultural land to other more intensive zoning districts is, quote, discouraged. I wonder if discouraged is not specific enough to really have an impact to those who want to rezone agricultural land. Is that really what we want to say? Residential housing is permitted on agricultural zone land. As on page 91, a lot size and land division regulations are needed to prevent agricultural land becoming subdivisions. Obviously a hot topic in the community. And I just wonder if discouraged is the right word.
Is
that
it
we
the
wanna
right word?
use.
Okay.
Where exactly are you finding that word, Tom?
On page 78,
To be,
in the box that addresses goal 2B.
Gotcha. Yep, okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I caught that. I just couldn't find it on the page.
What would be a better word? I don't have any. Think that's from our surveys, that people want this to remain agricultural, rural. So we would be discouraging cluster development or in the agricultural area.
mhm.
That is a goal. That can change, obviously, but what would be a better word?
I would think more factual, maybe just even the percentage of for and against, or if there was nobody for it. I agree that discouraged, looking at that doesn't sound very factual. Unless that's not what we're going for here in this paragraph. Is this what the residents are saying?
It's basically what the takeaways were from the surveys, from the workshops and the open house. So that's the word that came to my mind when trying to deal with that subject. Now,
I don't think you want to say not permitted. Because
I think maybe
things
for,
change, you know, 5 years from now, we may feel, you know, the people may feel differently, but I think that's the right word personally.
I kind of agree with Carl, because if you use the word limited, then that means you're in agreement with to an extent, and discourage means we really don't. And you're clear about that you really prefer no.
Yeah.
I guess I would just be concerned if it's not used systematically throughout the document that way. So if we're gonna say that this, for instance, this piece that we're talking about is not what the people want, and we're gonna use the word discouraged, then I guess we should use that throughout the whole document that way.
Like under consideration, rezoning to other more intensive zoning districts. Under consideration.
I just think whatever we do, I think it should be uniform. If we're gonna say,
Are you,
The third issue I raised was on page 87, and this is really more of an educational question for me as I was reading through this, and I wondered if others who are reading through it may also have the same lack of education. It refers to within the RC zoning district, there are privately owned tracts of land. And it's unclear to me whether within the RC district, the privately owned tracts of land could be increased by people purchasing them, which we would probably want to control, or are those tracts of land that are privately owned there because before the state made it state land, they were already privately owned homesteads of settlers many, many years ago? If I guess my concern is if more land that's now considered state land could be purchased and therefore developed, that may be something that this master plan should address or zoning should address.
So page 37 has a map that shows the land in the southern part of the township that's owned by the state of Michigan. And you see, for the most part, the southern half is green, but there's kind of a patchwork of private properties that emerged from what the state bought or didn't have or what they owned from going back. So
I don't understand your point. It's privately owned. There's some that's privately owned. Those people are free to develop it within the ordinances or sell it for whatever reason. State land would be, is the state planning on selling it or, I don't understand your point.
I guess my lack of knowledge is, can state land become privately owned land?
Well, certainly if the state decides to sell it, we can't go and tell the state we want to buy it. They have to,
No.
the state has to determine they want to sell it, then it goes up for, I don't know if it goes up for auction or whatever.
But
It's-
it
I don't
ends up
see-
in the zoning district that it's in. It has to follow the rules of the zoning district that it is in. If the piece of land is already in a zoning district,
Okay,
so that piece of land will have to follow
the
The
RC rules.
right.
Okay,
If it's in the RC district, it has to follow the RC rules.
okay. Thank you. On page 95, it's the fourth issue. In the lower right-hand corner under planning strategies, it says, continue to support efforts to educate homeowners and property owners about being good stewards of lakefront property. And I don't know that I have heard of anything that Whitewater Township has been doing to educate homeowners and property owners. I know ESLA is involved with that. So how can we maybe I'm missing, but can we continue to do something that we're not doing already?
It is kind of a-
One of,
I'd say-
at the bottom there, my thought to address it, would the township be establishing septic testing as part of this? Would they make boat wash stations mandatory within boat launches within Whitewater Township, of which I know there are two?
So I can answer some of that because I'm a board member at ESLA. So there are some townships that do both of those things that you said. There's townships that regulate septic inspections upon property transfer, and there are townships in Michigan that require boat washing prior to launch. I would agree with you that this township has not ventured into those topics that I'm aware of. So possibly that wording could be confusing. I see your point.
Mhm.
I also would say that I don't think that the township employees are necessarily the specialists in that area of information, that area of expertise tends to live with the Watershed Center and various other conservation organizations and state organizations.
Mhm.
DNR and Eagle. So I
Right.
don't know, Randy, if you have any other.
Well, just a couple of comments that there is discussion about the other efforts that have been going on with regard to the lake. And then if I'm not mistaken, the township zoning administrator at some time was helping to promote or advertise some efforts that were going on about education of what the Elk Lake and Skagmog organization was doing. So it was fairly modest support, but I thought there was some support. Not certainly active regulation or funding or anything like that, but there was some sort of modest level of support for them, for what was happening.
I think sometimes there's been handouts here in the town hall for that kind of information in the
Okay.
past.
So it's modest, but
But-
there has been some, so
Yes.
continuing may not be an entirely inappropriate word.
Yeah, take out the first, continue to, just start with support efforts. It's 2 words, continue to.
I think
Yeah,
that's a good
work
idea.
better.
Yeah.
And the last refers to page 109. On the right hand, halfway down the column or the last paragraph, it says, future zoning updates should consider minimum front yard setbacks, and it makes reference to a study that the road commission is undertaking that may well change their guidelines. And so my thought is that once that study is published, that it probably should automatically come before the planning commission to make some adjustments. I guess it's not really a amendment to the master plan, but just planning ahead that if that report does come out, that we should be ready to act on it or review it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Do you want me to pass these on?
Yeah, if you could pass those out so people, because you've got a lot of detail in yours also.
Thank you. Oh, wow.
Purposes of time tonight, I'm not going to read every word. I think the intent was here to give you some background.
So Gary, you have the colored picture on the back too, right? And maybe some people in the audience might want that. Sure. Here.
I thought Randy did an outstanding job. I read Milton Township and a number of the other ones, and this master plan is par with any of those, in the sense that if not exceeds, what I saw with the other townships. My first issue was one that I saw in the survey, that time after time, it seemed like there was so much in the way of concern over the quality of roads in the community. And on page, I believe it was 106, on chapter 8, there was mention that roads are the responsibility of Grand Traverse County Road Commission. But in my short time here, I have found that that organization, the county, has turned the responsibility, or 50% of that responsibility, back on the local community. A lot of residents don't understand that. I think the majority of residents don't like it. But the reality is, that is the way it is. I think the master plan, needs to somehow identify that as a realistic situation. Come up with the means to inform the residents. Come up with some strategies of how to deal with the funding issue. Without getting political on it, residents say, well, we'll just have to change the road commission. We need to change the county. Have them, understand that it just doesn't work. 2,000, 3,000 people aren't going to be able to pay for these roads. But the fact is, the roads, I believe, are not going to get repaired. And I've cited from the asset management plan what is in the local match policy. 50% of the cost of the roads has to come from the local township. At some point, the roads will reach a PACER rating of 1, which has failed. Within that 50% match policy, it says the county will no longer be responsible for maintenance. Now, are they going to do that? Are they going to follow through on that? I don't know, but there are a number of roads within Whitewater Township that are in that PACER rating of 3 and 2, just above failure. So within the next 5 years, in the time that this master plan, I predict that roads will fail in Whitewater Township. And somehow, we can say, hey, it's someone else's problem. But the residents through the survey were very concerned about the condition of the roads. And a lot of them, my first approach was to the township officials, and they said, go talk to the county. I talked to the county. They said, go talk to your township. And Carl, you live on my street. I know that this is the situation. It's a back and forth situation, and no one wants to pay for roads. So I would, and I've put verbiage in here possibly that could be a goal. I think just saying it somewhere is not going to.
I had a question for you too, Gary. Isn't it also when you say 50% that the 50% comes out of the people who are affected or live on the road? It is the whole township comes up with it, is it? Isn't it the people that live on the affected road that have to come up with the 50%?
Well, my understanding is, irregardless of what road it is, that funding would come through the township. So that if there was a special assessment done, let's say on Elk Lake Trail,
Okay,
we as the residents would come up with that 50%. Okay. But the township would somehow either bond that or whatever, and then they would be responsible for the financial transfer to the county, not the residents themselves. It would still be within the township.
I think didn't that happen on, Cheryl, can I ask you a question?
Probably shouldn't.
Okay, well, anyway, that's my understanding, and I'm probably getting it wrong, that what you're talking about actually happened on Deal Road. And the residents of Deal, that thing got very bad. And from what I understand, I could be wrong, mistaken, but the residents that live along that road was given an assessment probably for the 50%.
Well,
Okay, is that right, Carl?
our road was a private road.
Mhm.
And when it became a public road, it had to be brought up to the county standards.
Yep.
And we were assessed. I forget how long. In fact, I just looked it up not too long ago. I think I paid over $3,000 over close to 10 years. You could pay it all up front, but that was to bring it up to county standards. Now, since it's been up to county standards, the county has come and made patches to it where it was required. The one corner is pretty bad from Angel Road on to Lake South. Road south, that's passed, but the county is maintaining it at no further assessment to us. Now, if we wanted to have the road totally repaved, I don't know what that is, and I don't think there's any support for that at this time. Yeah, it's got some bumps in it, but it's, if you go over and look at Hoyles Road in Clearwater Township, there's a real mess.
And Carl, not to interrupt you, because you and I worked on it. I spent last summer about 30 hours walking
Yeah.
amongst my neighborhood, just trying to flush out this whole idea of special assessment. One of my concerns and is from a group standpoint, and I think whether it's the plan commission or a special committee or some group to begin to develop some strategies and then some information for residents to begin to understand, not Gary's explanation or Carl's explanation or anybody. It's what is factual to get this, to a forefront within the community. And when Carl talks about Elk Lake Trail, Angel Road from Elk Lake Road to 31, okay, through Acme is not going to be repaired by the county until there's 50% of the local funds. Now tell me those farmers, the 7 farmers that live on Angel Road are going to come up with $4.5 million. And yet I drive that all the time. There are trucks that drive back and through there. Now, that becomes a township issue. It's not a local subdivision issue. I think that's a primary road, but the county has now redesignated that and said it's one step above a local road. But my point is that it needs to be addressed in the goal. My second item, and excellent attempt was done by Randy as for the non-motorized trail system. And I believe it was on page 107. And Randy and I have talked back and forth on this. There was an assumption there that the existing bike trail 35 that's now down Bates is going to remain there forever. Once the Naquami Trail is built along 31, that trail on 35 is just going to move over to Naquami there at that point. So that there was some identification within the master plan to link to Bates Road. I believe it would be beneficial for the community to think about, and it's a long shot, is how do you link to the Tart Trail and how do you link to Naquami Trail? So then I can go to Traverse City or I can take that Naquami Trail up north. You probably all know that the Tart Trail ends at Bates Road in 72. That's in Acme Township, about a mile west of, or west of Whitewater Township. And that's what the map that I have there shows, that the master plan could show that would be a connection point to the larger trail network. As you know, what's in the master plan doesn't mean it's going to get funded, it's going to get approved or whatever, but at least it shows that there's some thought of where that would go. And then within the community, possibly how do we link key points, Whitewater Township Park or schools and so on. It might be some form of shoulder pavement or whatever. And that's it. I have a lot of other points in here, but I'm not going to take all your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary.
Just for clarification, though, the map that you handed out was an earlier version of the stuff that you and I went back and forth.
Correct.
So what you would see in a new map would be slightly different than this, but I think it all makes sense. I appreciate your work on this.
Okay, thank you.
Wherever the township best friend is the supervisor of they were given a donation to, a large sum of money to develop this. They're working on that right now. I agree that there should be more discussion about bike routes, specifically younger people. I can say that my son bought his first car, what, 37? Rides his bike to and from work, 35 minutes a day, one way. In heavy traffic, he's been doored 1 or 2 times, which is never fun, if you know what door means. There's the sidewalk, there's the parking, then there's the bike lane, and then there's the car lane. And people they cross the bike lane to the parking area. And then people from out of the city never know that you're supposed to look when you open your door because it goes into the bike lane. And they just wing it out in front of somebody going 30 miles an hour on their bike. That means a little head flip. It would be really nice if we could get a bike trail that isn't that close to traffic. You know, something like, if we're gonna work on them. So
And I think that from my perspective, and not to take a lot of your time, is safely crossing those major arterial roads. And right now, this light is the easiest way to get from the north to the south is at that light. Obviously, there would be some modifications done with a pedestrian type crossing there, but at least it's controlled. I did speak with Tart on this, Amy, and she said, don't give up on having a crossing at Bates Road there. And then following the railroad track back around, and you could link back into the casino and, and come back around through the old 72 is a good option. The big question is, will IDOT warrant another signal at that point? That's a challenge, but definitely worth looking into that alternative route that way. And that's what the map would show. Thank you.
Just one other point here, we haven't really defined whether it's a paved shoulder or a separate trail. There's dozens of different designs that can go into how that's accomplished. So that's work to be done at a later time. We're just really establishing non-motorized connections more so than any specific design to anything. Good, that would come later.
Yeah, I think, I've seen bikes for years now. I've ridden one a lot until recently. Elk Lake Road, it would be a very good road to have a bike path on the side up into Elk Rapids. That's something that we think in the future as one of our items is to improve the bike trails. And I think it is mentioned in the master plan, but along with a lot of other items, what is there, it's a thought. I don't know that I think it's probably a fairly high priority with the amount of biking in this area but it's again, it costs money to do that kind of stuff. And where is it going to come from?
One other reason to have it on Elk Lake Road is the fact that Elk Lake Township recognizes that as well. So they're planning on something from the village limits south to their township boundary. So it seems to make sense that we try to pick that up as well.
I want to make a couple comments to support Gary. I had some notes on this very same page. I think you covered it very well. Kind of my thought went along similar with a lot of what everybody just said here is we're talking about a village, working towards a downtown village area, bringing the Tart Trail into town that way would support all that. The talk of running it up and down Elk Lake Road ties Williamsburg in with other communities. I thought, I kind of thought this should be mentioned a little bit better, and putting it on the map really sums it up. So I think that's really good. Yeah, yeah.
I'm Reen Stratton. I was part of the ROS. And my comment refers to specifically on page 63, chapter 5, where at the first open house, we talked, the attendees were asked to review the 2015 master plan and rate whether they thought some of the issues on there should be continued in the new master plan, or we should abandon some of them. And one of the things that goes along with, I have a cold, sorry, with the rural, maintaining the rural character of Whitewater Township was listed in the 2015 master plan as preservation of the township floodplains, wetlands, watersheds, and water bodies. And people supported that. You can see the numbers on page 63. And 29 were in favor of keeping it, and 2 were in favor of removing it. One clarification, I had sent this to Randy, the floodplains are regulated by Grand Traverse County, so we would strike that. But I think that the preservation of the waterways and bodies of water is important, an important part of the character of Whitewater Township. A question that was asked on the survey was, what's your favorite view? And a number of people listed that their favorite views were down Angel Road, for instance, looking at Elk Lake, looking at Skegamog, as well as a lot of stuff off of Elk Lake Road, either looking towards the water or towards the farmland. So I feel like that should have been included as part of goal 2B. And and so I would recommend that propose that we add to chapter 6, principle 2, which is on page 78. I'm sorry, goal 2A, preserving Whitewater Township's rural character. That we add the following verbiage to the area labeled specific, and this is that the updated zoning ordinance should support the preservation of Whitewater Township's wetlands, watersheds, and water bodies as part of Whitewater Township's rural character. And as part of that, one of the zoning plan goals is, or goals is, go ahead.
I was just, some of that was contained in that Article 27
Right.
of the old zoning ordinance that was repealed
Right.
a few years ago, and so some of that was contained in there, but it was all completely eliminated, so.
Yeah, in 2019, Article 27 of the zoning ordinance was removed. And I don't know if you all still have access to that or not. I know Randy has an electronic copy. But it was an environmentally sensitive land use permit applications and covering definitions of wetlands and dunelands and leaching. It's a very actually suddenly in-depth article in the zoning ordinance, which makes me think that maybe we got it from someplace else. But I think that that's a very good idea to include that as part of the zoning plan, which covers the clarification of the zoning ordinance that Randy's been working on, and also creating possibly new ordinances, but reinstating this Article 27 in a clarified and simplified form to protect the waterways, both from future development and also from any changes that we make in the zoning code. So that we make sure that we're continuing to support this important part of the character of Whitewater Township. I think that's all I have. Any questions?
I just want to try to clarify in my mind what you're,
I appreciate the thoughts about the best view in the state or in the township to the. I live on Elk Lake Trail, and right out my front window is that view.
And something like, what was it, 6 square miles of Whitewater Township is Elk Lake.
Yeah.
So we should probably take care of it.
So when you're talking about the information on page 63, you're talking about preservation of Whitewater Township rural character in.
Right.
In the second heading
Exactly.
under there is the one you're talking about,
Mhm.
which is talking about the sewers systems around the wetlands. Correct?
My understanding is that it's talking about more than, and it's more general, but I think it would cover
But,
septic
okay,
systems.
I guess that's more how I should have worded it. It would include the septic system stuff. So, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It would include that.
In my notes, that particular item is something I flag too, and I flag it as, we have support in both this survey and the new survey for, some upgrades or sewage systems around the waterfront areas, but we don't seem to highlight that real well in the master plan. So, I don't know our correction to do to make that, but that was something that I flagged too. So I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding what kind of what it was all encompassing.
Yeah, and so what I'm proposing is that if you go to page 78, where we get into the goals. Principle number 2, preserve Whitewater Township's rural character, that the preservation of those waterways and bodies of water would be in goal 2A. And so my verbiage would be in addition to
Inserted.
that, yeah.
Maybe I could add a little clarification too. I think what we had here was Article 27 included regulations about wetlands and steep slopes and sensitive features in the township. And it was inferred what you have here. So I think what you're saying is draw that out more and describe that as being components of rural character. I think Article 27, and when my reading of it had a lot of issues in it, it was cumbersome and there were conflicts between local regulations and state regulations, so it needs work, but the intent of it is spot on as far as I'm concerned, as far as trying to get those requirements in there. We just need to complement, state regulations, county regulations as far as, well, for example, erosion. I mean, the county requires a permit for disturbing more than an acre. So anyway.
Yeah, and Article 27 also has at least 5 different permits
Mhm.
that you would need to apply for, which I'm not really sure we can support. So
Right.
that's what I'm talking about in terms of clarification and simplification. Else?
Do we have anybody else in the audience here that would like to make a comment? Okay, then we have Kim on Zoom.
Hi there. It's been a little while. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to go through the master plan, the new rendition. And I wanted to go through a few of my notes. I apologize, I don't have a written copy for everyone. I'm not able to attend in person, but I'll kind of go through my list and ask for clarification as needed. The first thing is on our goals. And there were 2 points that hit me in relationship to the previous master plan. The first of which is you have changed the goal to protect rights of township citizens, and you have removed protect the private property rights. Protecting rights as a generic term is not the same thing as protecting private property rights. I really Didn't like seeing that change. I think there is an entirely different connotation. There's a different legal ramifications of those two terms, and I'd really like to see you consider putting back that original verbiage. I think that was one of the most important goals we had in our previous master plan. That's page 75, your first goal. The second one was your goal for the preserving the rural character. I did not find one of the implementation steps that we had in the previous master plan, which was highlighting the hunting, fishing, boating culture of Whitewater Township. That is such an integral part of Whitewater Township as a whole, of who we are, and can sometimes get buried by individuals who say, well, I like to see the farms, I like to see the water, they like to see them without people using them. And that's not what our township has been about. Historically, we have been a population that is active and engaged in whether it's snowshoeing, hunting, just shooting, archery, boating, fishing, all of those water sports. That is a huge part. Like someone mentioned earlier, 6 acres of Whitewater Township, or 6 miles, whatever. We have miles and miles of beautiful shoreline and waterfront property. That is a big part of who we are. I'd like to see that a little better clarified, that that is going to continue to be protected within our master plan. The next point was on page 78. You have support. You have the support for the rural character, and you did include a support of agritourism under your economic point, but you didn't keep it under the supporting the rural character. If we are not actively supporting agritourism and alternate means of support for our farmers, we're going to lose them at an even a faster rate than we already are. They have to be able to have events, hold meetings, have weddings. They're already going under and record hundreds and hundreds of acres every year are we getting dropped off of active agricultural production just in our area. I would like to see you consider a stronger statement of support for varied means of economic support for our farmers. My next note is on page 78. You have a comment about Article 27 in the an old Article 27 in zoning ordinance. I would really encourage you to not reference the old Article 27 at all. As someone noted, it obviously was not from our ordinance. It was a cut and paste from somewhere else that did not properly relate to Whitewater Township. I have no problem with some of the guidelines, some basic guidelines for environmental protection can be included, but I would not muddy the waters with a really bad document being referenced in your new document. I just let it be. Page 78, Grand Traverse Road Commission, your road setback comment. I want to make sure that the Planning Commission is aware. Were we to adopt and endorse in our master plan the Grand Traverse County Road Commission setback guidelines for potential future development, without at least some caveats for protection of existing properties, their setbacks absorb entire properties, entire lots, and entire homes. Personally, were those guidelines adopted and put into place, the road setback for building on Williamsburg Road would be my backyard behind the house. This is a real problem. That would leave me with approximately 15 feet of space, which is not even enough to meet my rear setback zoning requirements. So if this is adopted and implemented through your master plan, you are completely and totally eliminating multiple parcels of land, multiple properties that then are no longer usable for anything because there's no longer enough land left for any use. So you need to be very, very careful and very, very aware. I would not include a statement such as this in our master plan without doing an analysis of how many homes, how many properties are going to be made non-conforming and or be rendered unusable through implementation of that type of a guideline. I already hit that one. The private property or the private road ordinance standard. I totally agree. We removed the previous private road ordinance. 3 different versions of a new private road ordinance were developed. 1 at the planning commission or 2 at the planning commission. The township board rejected the first. We wrote a second and then wrote a third that was a joint committee between the township board and planning commission, a subcommittee. I would like to see something in your verbiage indicating that you are going to protect existing private roads. We have, I believe the last count was in excess of 66 private roads within Whitewater Township. One of the problems with some of the versions of private road ordinance that were being put forward was it condemned properties, it condemned existing properties, it cut off large acreage parcels of even 40 acres that made them unusable. You need to be careful, and I'd like to see some reference in the master plan to any private road ordinance should be sensitive to not condemning existing roads, existing access, and existing properties. See, you also have the 4D relates to a corridor plan down M72. I would like to see that specifically from Cook and Broomhead Road to the west. Previous plans, even prior to when I was on the planning commission, were trying to control all view sheds, all properties, and seizing heavy amounts of control of everything within 500 feet, both sides of M72. That was heavily rejected by the township population. I can understand a need for greater planning in your commercial and industrial districts, but that doesn't need to extend all the way to the east portion of our township. Let me see. On page 96, you also have a picture at the bottom of the page discussing your multifamily. That one just kind of hit me. We had a proposed development that was going to look almost exactly like that rendition. Would like to caution you, be a little careful of highlighting in photographs something that we kind of universally rejected and seriously were relieved did not go in. I understand that's multifamily and this is discussing the multifamily area, but we kind of don't want to highlight something that was not well received within the township as desirable. In addition to that, I found no mention in the multifamily future discussion area of the reality that the areas that you have highlighted as multifamily pretty much across the board do not perk. The biggest issue facing any development in our multifamily, which it may be highlighted, I didn't catch it, is that the proposed multifamily sections, both of them, for some reason it looks like Millbrook condominium community was also added as a multifamily area, as a new expansion. Both of those have substantial perkability issues that haven't been highlighted and really would be difficult to resolve without a sewer plan overall in general. the last thing I guess I would like to highlight, your future land use map. I do question why we're changing all of our zoning districts. It looks like a fairly substantial departure in terms of the residential zones. And it would be very helpful to have a zoom into the downtown area. That's where there's most of the details, or to split that up into a 2-page map, expand in some way so that especially in a printed form, it will be more readable. On a computer, I can zoom in and I can get a closer idea of where things are at. But as a new person looking at this, it was really hard to zoom in and find out what the intentions were in a specific area. And I guess I would also be looking for a little more detail. It looks like you merged all of the R1 and R2. So I would question, are those now being made one district, R1 and R2? If so, are you eliminating the R2's ability to have 2-family, or are you expanding 2-family to the waterfront areas? You have you have apples and oranges, and it looks like you threw them in one basket. So some greater detail and definition on what the end analysis or desire would be in those districts, I was wondering. Thank you.
There anybody else who would like to speak on Zoom? You need to raise your hand. Okay, I think we're now to planning commission members.
I have one thing, Linda.
Sure.
The Planning Enabling Act 33, 125, 3807, Section 7, for master plans, it mentions recreation as D7, and D8 is use of resources in accordance with their character and adaptability. And one thing it'd be nice, I'd like to see it, maybe a tab highlighted that points out Sands Lake Quiet Area. Sands Lake Quiet Area is actually in the Pure Michigan ads. So it's used quite a bit. I was thinking the Sands Lake Quiet Area, the Vasa Trail. I was thinking the Whitewater Township Park and the campgrounds. And our ORV and snowmobile trails. I wonder if we couldn't have a tab or a section in there where we highlight our recreational assets.
I can respond to that. In the first chapter, we discussed the fact that the township has a recreation plan that has been, I think, a few years old. It's still, typically those recreation plans are good for 5 years. We still have, I think, 2 years to go on that. And that describes all of the recreational dimensions of the township in terms of what you have, priorities and all that. So it was stated in here that since that's a current and viable document, that we wouldn't try to duplicate what's in the recreation plan for the township.
So is that noted in section 1, Randy?
It is. It's under, I think, page 12. There's a picture of the recreation plan.
Well, my thing is it's the new master plan, and to point these out in our recreational plan, because they're not highlighted in those. I think this would be a great opportunity to point those things out.
Isn't, and maybe this is not what we're talking about, but it's on page 45 and 46, that's where it talks about the trails, and it shows maps and the area trails and the bike trails and all that. Is that not what you're talking about?
It does, but it doesn't, highlight some of the key things like the Sands Lake Quiet Area. And I don't know if the Vasa, I didn't look if the Vasa Trail is on there. I know there's a Whitewater Township Park.
What page are you on?
Well, this year,
46 is the maps he's talking about.
46.
45, it starts talking about the trails.
So, for me anyway, I just like to see a tab or a section where these things are brought to the front or highlighted.
So would you rather see those in the chapter 3, present conditions that tourism and seasonal residents and what?
We do have, let me see, what was around 46, was there a recreational? We could slide it in basically where, wherever Randy felt it would fit the best is when we're speaking of our recreational or rural. This would also fit rural, our rural character with our quiet area and our trails and the park. So I think we could find a spot to just slide it into. 46.
So let me clarify that on page 11 at the bottom, it says like many Michigan communities, Whitewater Township has a recreation plan. It was adopted December 14th, 2021. It's a 5-year plan that goes to 2025. It reflects the requirements by the Michigan DNR and describes Whitewater Township, provides a recreational inventory, action plan, and capital improvements plan related to park improvements. Now, that's just for what Whitewater Township owns and controls. So you're speaking to a facility is that state land, or who owns the Sand Lake Square?
It's state land. It's state land in Whitewater Township.
Same with Vasa, operates on state land.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we mentioned the Vasa Trail and we mentioned the Tart Trails as well, so.
Of the master plan, and I think
Yeah.
maybe Al was speaking to putting it all together in one
Yeah.
package, couple of paragraphs, so people can, and I don't know. That would probably go somewhere in the beginning of, maybe on 24, where you start to talk about why people come to the tourism.
And we could just highlight some of those things, some in there, like the township park and the ORV trails, the Vasa trails and the quiet area, just because if they're all in one spot, maybe have some, like, here's a map of the Sands Lake quiet area. Maybe include, just include some more information on it.
That might be located on the Whitewater Township website, things to do in the area, and then maps of our parks, things like that. It can be developed together in case, because it has park hours and, the Whitewater Township Park, there's more than Whitewater Township Park that we could emphasize in our township. But it needs a web design person. If you look at the other township web pages, more extensive than what ours, and they contain a lot more information about what to do, things to do.
This would just be drawing attention to it, though.
Yeah.
We wouldn't need to have everything on it, but we can just draw attention. So somebody looking at the master plan could go to that and be aware of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, all those detailed maps and stuff of the parks in the township are the ones that are owned by the township. Those detailed maps are in the rec plan.
Yeah, but most people, if they come to our township, they're not gonna go, oh, I'm gonna go to their park and rec.
Yeah, I know. I think we're talking about
Where-
different uses for different documents though, right?
Yeah,
Like you've
yeah.
got the recreation plan,
Yeah.
that's where you house those documents, and you are correct. A lot of other various
Yeah, I
trail
don't-
maps are available online through lots of different.
Yeah, I don't
sources.
know that it needs to be in the master plan when we have this in other locations, and these are things that we have now. It sounds like you're making, an advertisement, not a master plan.
Well,
We gotta keep it
Well,
specific. We shouldn't be go out bragging about everything and just making this thing 3 foot thick. We should be concentrating on the wants of and needs of our community and our future. We have all those things. And we've already said in here that, we should maintain and improve them, but I don't think we need to put additional verbiage in there about that.
Like we could make some type of mention of, like a quick sentence somewhere, like even at the end or something for more information about Whitewater Township, see our website. Something very simple like that, where all this information you're talking about, we do have, or if like the Vasa Trail isn't in one of these documents or mentioned somewhere, we can do our best to make sure those types of things get added into those documents. But I don't know that what you're talking about belongs in this document, and I think Carl had a good point that we're not, this isn't really an advertisement, we're trying to put a plan together and you know, for the community looking forward.
Well, if you read the Planning Enabling Act, section 7D7, D8, it mentions recreational use. And and D8 is the use of resources in accordance with their character and adaptability. So we're not advertising. This is what the legislature says should be in a master plan.
And as Randy's pointed out, we in the master plan, we point out that the township has this information and here's where you find it.
Because I just wanted to point out, there are so many other things out there that we're not even touching here. There's some awesome RV trails out there, there's snowmobile trails, there's all sorts of stuff out there that we could. But to try to put all that together in this document, I don't think it's necessary.
No, I'm not. What I'm trying to do is just mention those four things is they are there, and then they can go look for them. Because if you just, I'm not saying we need to build a document. What I'm saying is we have these assets we could point to, and then they can go research it. But when you pull this up, if you have a tab that shows you these, then you say, oh geez, what is that? And they can go look for it. We're not saying we're not making an advertisement. We're just pointing out our character and adaptability and what we have.
And where do you think that should go in the document?
That's what I was gonna see where we, if we wanted to add a tab or if we wanted to put it in one of our recreational places.
But we
Have to add it to, we could add it to a place.
yeah.
You said we do have a recreational plan?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's where it should go. And there should be just a reference. I think you said that is.
it is, there
It
is.
is a reference in there to go see that.
Yeah.
There's no sense adding the same thing in two different documents.
And it
Put it
looks like-
together then, so it's in one.
And Randy included the information on the trails under the heading in the table of contents. He put it under transportation and mobility. I understand what you're saying is like, you were looking for maybe, under present condition of Whitewater Township, you were looking for like a title of recreation or.
Well, when we got something that's mentioned on the Pure Michigan ads in recreation, and we don't recognize that in our master plan. I think that's probably pretty hard to do, get something recognized on the Pure Michigan ads.
So on page 25,
Mhm.
if you look on that, there's a whole list of things to do in the charter city area. Right here.
So Denise, if you have a comment, you need to speak into the microphone so everybody can follow what you're saying.
Sure. I was saying on page 25, there's the left column is attractive destination articles that are there and things to do. And it covers some of those I don't know if Whitewater Township is mentioned in any of these, that's the key. But that's not something that needs to be worked on in master plan. That's more of a marketing aspect of our township that would be another area of help that we would need on a website and the internet. If you put in Whitewater Township, yeah. But if you type in Williamsburg, Michigan, things to do, there's nothing. That's something that we could work on it, but it is something that would go in the master plan. Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments I'm kind of looking to the PC members because we've heard from the ROS and some members of the public. Anybody else have any comments they wanted to share?
Would like one addition, chapter 5, community engagement. On
Which page?
Page 57.
Okay.
Following the medical marijuana survey, there should be, I think, just after that, the it's something, I don't know exactly what the headline would be, but add in August 2022, a referendum to prohibit adult use marijuana establishments was passed, yes, 696 to no, 400. Following this referendum passage, the township board voted to repeal the marijuana ordinances 59 and 60 and replace with new ordinances 61 and 62 prohibiting adult use marijuana on 9/23/22 and commercial marijuana 11/12/22. And the reason for that is it was a significant amount of time that was spent on that, and it should be included in the master plan. So people looking at our township that haven't lived here very long might say, well, I wonder why they didn't opt in. And so that would be the reason.
Okay, any questions for Denise
Does anybody have any discussion
or
about it?
comments?
It's a pretty,
No, not really. I mean, we're putting in, our ordinances, I guess, into them that we turned down. I mean, that list could get very long.
okay, well, then we could just say, take out that part then. Take out the repeal of the ordinances and just put ordinances 61 and 62 were passed prohibiting adult use marijuana.
And why would we mention that in the master plan?
For me, if you have the medical marijuana there, people might think, why don't they have adult use marijuana here? And want to bring it up at meetings, and we could just say, if it's in here, they could say, oh, they discussed it, they did it, and the township the voters turned it down. But if I don't know.
I think just mentioning that we had the survey says that without saying it out loud. If you know what I mean, we had a survey and we obviously don't allow marijuana growth in the community. So it kind of gives you the answer of what happened. Without having to tell it in here and get into the whole thing that Al's talking about.
Okay,
We could have a big, long list of all kinds of ordinances
that didn't, okay.
So I did notice in the event barn survey, we quote a lot of statistics, but we don't really quote the output of the medical marijuana survey. I would think that you should at least include whether people were in favor of it or not in favor
Why
of
would
it.
we do that?
Because you did it under event barn surveys. I'm just saying, treating issues.
Well, the event bar survey, I think, is like a commercial thing. It's kind of like this agricultural agritourism. A hard time with that word, but that event bar thing would kind of fall into that. But
Well, grow marijuana is a commercial operation too. I know they don't want to call it agriculture, but it is.
yeah, well, and the thing is too, it's a product. What I'm saying is that I would think would qualify as like an event barn to go with what the farmers are doing with their barns, but the product they're growing, I don't know.
So this whole section is about community engagement, and Randy put together kind of a timeline list of different surveys that they've done. And there's quite a bit of information. So it kind of started with the 2009 survey that was used for the last master plan. And it goes through the various surveys that were done, including most recently the ARPA survey. So all I'm saying is that, there's lots and lots of detail, especially about the 2009 survey, because that ties directly in with that master plan. So I get that. So I'm just asking the question, you know, we have lots of detail on some of them and not so much on others. And, you know,
I'd like
I
to,
think kind of what Denise is trying to say, is there a way to try and make sure that it's kind of each survey gets
On page 50,
equitable airtime?
on page 57, I think it is clarified. Where it says medical marijuana survey 2017, I think they clarified that.
I just
Yeah.
would like to point out one thing. I think that any time that the citizens vote. And
That's community engagement.
that's community engagement. And there is no better information than that right there.
Well, wait a minute.
Let me finish. So
This
so just
says,
my point.
you know, this thing here says the residents surveyed and largely responded comments did not favor local. It's been rejected, period.
Yeah.
We have ordinances prohibiting it.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with saying, well, you know, they were in favor. No, we have two ordinances rejecting commercial use of marijuana, growing, processing, everything. And that's been done twice. That's what it ought to say. I mean, if you're gonna say anything, I mean, people should know that. It's not permitted, period.
Finish my comment.
Maybe it will be in the future, but it's not right now.
Okay, Carl, let's let Keith finish.
I just want to finish my comment. So my point is that if we have anything that refers to the master plan that was taken a vote on recently, I think that should have just as much weight as any survey or anything out there. So to Denise's point, you know, I'm not sure exactly the wording is exactly what we need, but I'm just saying that I think it's very relevant to any information. That put in.
Yeah, I agree.
I had an idea there, Keith, when you was, if you would look on page 57 at medical marijuana 2017. Wouldn't that be a nice place to just go ahead and make a short verbiage there that a vote was taken and rejected by blah, blah, blah? Would
That's what I-
would that be a good spot to put it?
Yeah, just one or two sentences.
Yeah.
You could add it to that.
And add it to that, and with that,
Yeah,
That was my point.
yeah. So if you guys can help just with the verbiage, you don't need, you could send it to Randy and
I was.
Randy, do you have enough information to go on?
Just add a couple sentences there and we're good.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. perfect,
Okay.
perfect.
All right, thank you.
yes.
That's my only comment.
Does anybody else have any comments to share with the group?
Well, I do, but I'm gonna probably carry on a little bit, so if anybody else does, they should.
Go ahead.
You should go right ahead.
Uh,
The senior member is gonna
Right.
speak.
Uh,
All right.
The very
Oh,
first
my-
thing I want to say is, Randy, I think you did a very great job.
Yes,
This is, I think this is a very good document. So I want to remind you that you said I'm supposed to take it home and make it my own. So please don't take anything I say personal. This is just my own hillbilly opinion. Okay? I kind of want to just flip through the book and talk about the things that I get there, and then I have notes on the front and back cover in case I forgot something.
Okay.
So
wow.
please just follow along with me. I
Tell us what
apologize.
page you're on.
Yeah.
I will keep you with that. And I'll try to skip over all the punctuation and stupid stuff. in my mind. Irrelevant at this point. Well, let's see, through chapter 5, I think I have. I gotta say, at the beginning of chapter 6, I really did appreciate how you emphasized the property rights was like the main thing people were concerned about. And up until that point, I was getting concerned, it hadn't really been a topic. And been talked about, and I was glad to see that. Oh, this map on page 33 if that's the best they got, I say we don't waste the paper. That's a joke. I mean,
What page is that?
33. the
33
topography.
on a topography map. That's, if we're gonna show I mean, let's get a topo map if that's what we're trying to do. That's a joke. Let's not waste the paper, is my opinion,
You mean get a map with the lines on it
Yeah.
instead of a color?
instead of that. Yeah. If that's the best they got and we really want one, let's find our own. Let's not use theirs.
Okay. Yeah, the state would have probably something better.
Actually, I think there's.
Yeah, I've looked at a lot of topo maps and I've never seen anything that was as horrible as that.
You're right.
All right, I got a note here on page 51. And in the school paragraph, I think we should, make a mention about the state that the school's in right now. It's in a state of decline, not maybe the building so much, but the children, it's not full. And it's got this issue where it's losing funding and that there are ideas being kicked around about, what to do with it.
And what are those ideas?
Well, they're talking about this, trying to make it a charter and somehow get it into the charter system. And I don't remember that conversation well enough to tell you back every detail, but they are working on a plan to try to get it into the charter system, but Elk Rapids schools still be a dominant factor in it. I don't understand it all, but
In academy.
yeah.
Right.
So,
But certainly we could
but
go to the
seeing-
school and get an update.
right, but it seems like, some information about what is happening now couldn't hurt anything right there.
Wasn't there, we had a gentleman here from the Elk Rapids School District that we worked with them, combined with them to, I guess, be able to get more funding. He was here a couple of meetings ago and talked to us about that, and that is kind of Sunday, kind of the direction we should go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to do. So, and I'm just making reference to maybe we should put part of that in, some of that in there. There's some detail about that in there.
I believe from the presentation, all of that was getting finalized right about now.
Yeah.
It was all going to be clarified. The intent was, I think, to open the school in the fall under a different status if it was approved. So.
Just wanted to make a comment on that. I didn't see in here, but is anywhere in here it addresses the issue that the school superintendent, right? Brought up when he was here about people being able to afford to move into Whitewater Township with kids. Is that addressed anywhere in this? I didn't see it.
Not specifically, although it's a general concern that has been expressed about the affordability of.
I think maybe that's a good,
properties
if we're gonna talk about the school system and the problems,
Yeah,
because that's gonna be ongoing when we talk about
Yep.
land divisions, when we talk about,
yeah.
the size of lots we're gonna have. That should all be in the discussion. Should be in here somewhere. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a good place to put it, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess, first of all, recall that these first 4 chapters were written 9 months ago,
Right, yes.
and I guess there's a lot of moving parts in this. I'm happy to take a shot at writing what I think I hear you say, but there's, number one, it's a moving target. Number two, there's a question of how much we can put in here as far as how that impacts the school specifically. I mean, your point's well taken. I understand that. So I'm just struggling with exactly what the words are that go in the page that convey your thoughts.
I think, I mean, one of the things you can take right from himself is that, you know, their concern is that they're losing kids because the affordability of moving into Whitewater Township is above what parents with kids can afford.
Yeah, we heard that loud and clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, you know, just a paragraph with that in.
Okay.
I think would
I
be
think
very
the
good.
superintendent could probably
You could even quote.
provide a succinct three-sentence summary of that.
Could reach
And
out
I
to him.
think it's
Yeah.
important to clarify that because you are identifying the other schools as charter schools and alternative schools. And it's probably important to make sure that that's correct as best as we can anticipate at this point.
At this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Change
Yeah.
tomorrow.
I think the timing was coming pretty close.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you used that word because that's another comment I'm gonna probably make at the end, but this really is an anticipation. Okay, this is the things we're anticipating from what we're seeing now, but we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. And I have comments about that later, but that's a great word. I didn't write it down, so I'm gonna steal it. Now I'm gonna move forward to page 54. And to your comment about this being written a long time ago, I think this was probably very relevant then. But right now, I think things are coming to light that this isn't quite so relevant. And in my opinion, I would like to delete this paragraph, the part about electric mobility. But if we don't delete it, I think we should say something to the effect that, first, let me back up a little bit. What I'm getting at is, these electric cars aren't selling like they were predicted. And that is so relevant that the auto industry is shutting down making them. Okay, and that wasn't happening when we wrote this. Okay, so this is, you know, industry doesn't make stuff that's not selling. So if we're gonna leave that, we should say something to the effect of, if the infrastructure is put in place, these, you know, and we know the government's pushing this, but at this point in time, we don't see it happening until the infrastructure is there. I don't know what the right exact words are for that, but
Maybe you could just put, just a suggestion, but just put the state that we're in. I don't think we have any charging stations in the township.
right,
Yeah.
there's no,
And no plans for any.
right, none of that stuff is being shown here. So I understand that the state of Michigan and the government is pushing in this direction real hard. But even the states that are mandating this to change in those states, if they don't have the infrastructure in place by the time that their mandate comes into effect, it isn't gonna happen. People are not gonna go buy a car they can't charge and get to work in if they can't do it. I have to get to my job. It's pure facts. So, that we see if there's a problem with the development of the infrastructure getting here, maybe we should make that comment. We see where they want to go, but we don't see the infrastructure getting here. Something to that effect.
So would you just want to add maybe a sentence that says at this time, there is no charging stations in Whitewater Township?
Yeah, in this region, where is, there are very few in this region.
Calcasta, I think, is the closest.
They got
No,
like
they've got
cities.
it at Blaine's, they've got them at,
Out
But
there,
it's-
but
but
Village Market.
yeah.
But it's very minimal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very, very minimal. And the amount of electric cars in this region is very minimal. And as people learn about the whole industry, as things come to light, I think they're gonna become less popular. They're not, you know, when people learn how the, let me put it this way. Batteries are a very toxic thing. They always have been, they're always gonna be, okay? And the batteries don't last forever. Someday they're gonna have to get rid of them. In all of this whole discussion, all these debates, all this stuff, I've never heard one person talk about what happens to the batteries when they're junk. From what I can understand, there is no plan to recycle them or take care of them. This is the environmental hazard waiting to happen, and that's how man operates. Just look at it over the course of time.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's kind of focus
What-
on this section. So Mike, you're asking to change this section slightly, maybe to make it a little smaller.
Just
Is that what
tailor
I
it to
heard you say?
Whitewater Township.
Well, this is just my own personal opinion. I don't see it. I see the government pushing in this direction. I don't see the stuff we need to make it happen coming our way. Now, those are my words. That's not words most of the public's gonna understand. We need to put it in better words if we're gonna put it in here at all. If you guys don't think it's necessary, I'm okay with that. I'm just saying. In my opinion, this doesn't really ring true right now, anymore. I think it did when Randy wrote the paragraph. I didn't have any problems with it the first time I read it, but when I reread it, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Ford and GM are quitting making electric cars.
Okay,
What are we
so-
talking
So,
about?
so let me clarify one point here. I didn't write that.
Yeah.
So this is, no, I'm not backing up.
But we put it in,
No,
right?
no, because what you see before that is it says the APA trend report. The
Yes.
American Planning Association started a few years ago producing an annual trend for planners to use at the local level to say, this is what we see at a national level about trends in terms of manufacturing, mobility, green economy, all these things, and they have national experts looking at the whole country. Now, because that's relevant to the whole country doesn't mean it's as particularly relevant here, but it's listed as this is what folks at the national level are seeing as far as trends. It doesn't make sense for local planners everywhere to work on this. I mean, it makes sense that there be a national sort of perspective of
I
what's
wonder if
changing.
they've updated their statement on this.
Actually, I think they have. I think there's a 2024. I saw it, but
And I realize you can't just keep updating this for the
Right.
rest of
Right,
your life,
yeah.
I think my suggestion that would maybe Mike would help Mike is just put one sentence afterwards saying that, as of right now, Whitewater Township has no plans
Or
for,
charging stations.
or,
For
Plans
this
plans for charging.
for this,
stations.
electric mobility push. And we don't have any that we see in the future, something like that, just.
That would be good.
I think that's a good word, no plans that,
Yeah.
charging, no plans.
Because it has not been brought up to us by anybody and.
Right, yeah, yeah.
I don't know that you can say that. There probably will be at like the Shell station here, they may put one in. There's 3 of them in Elk Rapids at the market there. We have to be aware of the how many new electric vehicles are in the area, and we need to plan for any requirements that we have, charging stations, but as far as promoting it, it doesn't appear that the technology exists for northern Michigan, period.
Okay, I think we do need to move on. I would request, because I know Mike has several more comments.
Sure.
And so I don't want to get hung up on one thing.
On page 60,
Okay.
when we're talking about short-term rentals, it's the
Yep. About
Okay.
fifth or sixth one down.
down. Let me just read it to you. About 1/3 want to prohibit, about 1/3 want to allow without any regulation, and about 1/3 want to enable with some form of regulation. So the topic in the beginning, it says the community is divided on this issue. 2/3 is a majority and 2/3 want it. They just can't decide how to make it happen. So, I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but when somebody reads this, I don't want them to, it should, I kind of sound, I don't know. We are a little divided, but that makes it sound like we're really divided. We're not really divided. The 2/3 of the community wants it. In my opinion, that means we should be working on it.
Yeah, they just can't decide on how they
What-
want to.
Yeah, what kind of rules? So, somehow I think the heading needs to be, mellowed a little bit or something. We are kind of divided, but we're not, it makes it sound like we really are divided. We're not.
Because it is, like you said, it
If it
is.
was a vote, 2/3 is a landslide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're really saying it's like 65%,
Yeah,
30%.
so
Good point.
I mean, it just, maybe soften the heading a
No,
little
I think-
somehow.
We're,
Instead of comment, instead of a period, after the first sentence, it put 2/3 are in favor of short-term rentals.
Just undecided on how to administer it.
Right, yeah.
Because I voted yes with regulation, but if there's no regulation, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, to say 2/3 wants it is incorrect as well. It was a bad question. It is what it is.
Yeah, we can't go back on that now.
I voted because I want it with regulation. If you don't have regulation, I don't want it. So now I would, I didn't have that choice.
So I
Well-
think that's a good point because I've read an awful lot of news articles on this and I don't think I've ever seen a community that allows it with no regulation. You see a lot more in the press about added regulation.
There's been some recent articles. In fact, I talked to Ron Pop a little bit about that some of the communities have come up with regulations and then revised them or put them on hold because they were getting so much input. So it's a subject that,
It's a hot potato.
it's, yeah, I know as I say, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to be very aware of what's happening in other communities. And we're going to sooner or later have to address it. I mean, in my neighborhood on the lake, the people have been renting their houses out for years. Not maybe for 2-3 weeks at a time. And there's some issues, but it's something we're gonna have to deal with.
All right.
Well, that kind of makes a statement true then, the way it's a third, a third, and a third. Some want it with regulations, some don't want regulations, and some don't want it at all. So that is actually what the survey said they wanted.
Because it's a topic that generates a lot of discussion, I think it'd be a good ROS just on that, or just say to people that come in another township, they handled a controversial development on a lake, and the people were against it, and they just said, bring us the paperwork, bring us all your research, and they did. It was about an inch deep. They all did their research and they brought it to the planning commission and said, here, review this. And it just saved the planning commission the time of doing all the research, which in ROS we do the same thing. I think people are generally interested in it enough to want to talk about it. It just depends on how formal you want it to be.
Yeah, maybe if you just added a note in there too, that, likely more clarification would be needed for this. There's obviously definitely a good portion of people that are in favor of it.
Well, I mean, if you just think about it, the third of the people who want no regulation are the people who want to do it right now or already have it done and don't want to get pimped
Well,
because
for
of what
sure.
they did.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
and then this third of people who want some regulation are the people who say, yeah, we should have that in our community, but there needs to be some regulation. Okay, so there still is a majority of, because obviously there's people who don't have it and think there should be regulation, but it's still okay. And there's tremendous amount of people in this community who want this.
Yeah.
I work in the building industry. It's asked for all the time.
I think maybe to Mike's idea here, is maybe just take out the word divided. Just change it to a more factual, leave it at the one third,
Yeah,
one third,
leave,
one
leave
third.
the rest of it alone, soften the title a little.
Yeah,
is all.
just take out,
We're not-
we're divided on the issue and,
Right.
Community has 3 opinions on.
yeah,
Is,
that's what we got.
Because
Well,
in my
that's a good
opinion, I
way
don't
of
think
doing
we're
it.
that
That's a good way
divided.
of doing it.
what
Yeah,
about
because
consent?
it
I think
states
everybody
fact.
really realizes that we do need regulation, but this
Yeah.
is something that's coming
Right.
and we need to deal with it.
How about the community has concerns on the issue of short-term rentals? And then in there, you can say that, 1/3, has these opinions and, I would, maybe that's good because then when the community comes in and reads this and has more input to us, at the meeting, but maybe divided isn't the right word. Concern, it is probably, but maybe it ought to be a little softened.
Maybe the community's input on the issue of short-term rentals and then the facts. That's it. Makes it simple.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Just soften it. That's.
Yeah.
That was my comment.
Can I just ask, Randy, is this in a goal, a numbered goal in?
Just that we address it
which
later.
one that was,
I forget. I'm pretty sure it's addressed. I can't remember. where.
oh. I thought I saw it in here somewhere, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's in 1F on page 84 where the summary is of all the community goals is. Page 84. Yeah. Okay, Mike, you got your next one?
Yes, page 66, the last paragraph. I was confused by this word agencies, if I'm even pronouncing that right. And I had to look it up, and after I looked it up, it sounds like we're kind of repeating ourselves that last sentence there. So I think we should stop behind spaces, 2 words before adjacencies.
Adjacencies.
Adjacent, see, I can't even pronounce it right. And that just shows my lack of readability, so.
I can agree that that's a simpler way to say it.
Well, that was my comment on that.
So just wipe out
Yeah.
those 3 words. Got it?
Well, I would put a period after spaces.
Yep.
And get rid of the rest.
Yep.
Is what I,
And by get rid of the rest, you want to get rid of the last sentence too, or just those last 3 words of the sentence?
no. Oh, yeah, just those 3 words, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
On page 70. The 3rd thing from the bottom, it says, develop more consensus about desirability of voluntary or mandatory architectural design guidelines. My question is this about housing or is this about commercial?
No,
This is like
commercial.
about Facades on buildings.
On commercial
The
stuff.
face
Yeah,
and
should
stuff.
we,
Then we're good. If that's where we are, I
Just
just,
add the word commercial in there.
well, we're actually reporting what was done at the workshop, but I'm sure that they were talking about commercial. No one was talking about
yeah.
residential.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because I don't see it in here anywhere where it says that's what we're talking about. And maybe I'm missing it somehow, but.
I think like the pictures you showed too, Randy, at the workshop.
Yeah,
They were all commercial buildings.
That was my comment on that page. All right, so back to short-term rentals on page 72. Uh, the third item up from the bottom. Develop greater consensus on the issue of short-term rentals in Whitewater Township. Okay, about 2/3 of residents say yes to allow short-term rentals with greater consensus. 2/3 is the majority. So again,
I think,
and here we use the 2/3 instead of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So again, I'm with I think we have the consensus. I think we need to add this to our list of stuff to accomplish because it's here.
I think what they mean by consensus is on how much regulation, what type of regulation, not so much whether they approve it or not, it's how to
Yeah,
do
maybe
it.
we should add the word level of regulation in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be good.
yeah, a little more clarification. That'd be great. Yeah,
Consensus on the level of regulation.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that actually would sound very good.
Oh no, it's spelling stuff. On page 84. Principle 3, build a sense of community. And I just happened to put the note here. There's other places in here that I thought the same thing. I might have just run across it here and I put the note here first, but 3A and 3B, these are talking about the village district. And to Kim's point earlier, I think somewhere in this document, a little bit of explanation as to how much infrastructure needs to be put into that area to make it happen is essential, because just because I want a downtown area in my community doesn't mean that I should have one just because I want it, or that that's where it should be, or that I should dictate what the people in that who develop that downtown district do there. And I don't mean what kind of businesses. I mean like when we get to parts where we're talking about buildings, seems to be a general consensus that the community wanted to see 2 or 3 story buildings close to the road, walkable streets and all that. Well, if somebody's wanting to put a business in downtown Williamsburg, but they don't want to build a 3-story building, I don't know why we would push away somebody who wants to develop our community just because their building didn't fit our 3-story idea. We can ask them to have the kind of facade that fits what we would like to see, but to tell them how many stories they're gonna have and what to put on each story, I don't know, somehow I was having trouble with that.
Can I answer that for a second though? Because that's a key point, because the township already does that. You already have a V zoning district that describes what can happen there. The issue is that there's no vision attached to it, in my mind. You've got requirements in there for setbacks. You have requirements for a lot of things, uses that are permitted. What's missing is that there is no accepted vision for what those requirements are supposed to try to achieve. So on the one hand, you want to encourage people to invest, of course, but then you want them to do it in a manner that's going to be complementary to what happens around them. So that's kind of the challenge of planning here, is that you already require something. You have a V district. It was written years ago, right?
Yeah, I think when it was written, the perkability of land wasn't, things were different. I mean, when this community was developed right here, none of these, none of this stuff perks. I mean, water comes up through a lot of these yards. I lived down here for years, okay? They were doing it different. So, and that's my point. There's a tremendous amount of infrastructure that needs to be put into that district to make it happen. It's a great idea to, you know, have a sense of community and make some kind of community besides this few businesses on the highway. But there's a lot to go in that, and I think there needs to be a short explanation somewhere in here that when we talk about that district, the kind of infrastructure that needs to be put there to make a downtown type area there needs to be explained to people. That helps them make wise decisions when they're when they're saying, yeah, I want to see that. And when they realize, whoa, it's going to cost me a lot of money, tax money to make that happen. Maybe I don't want to see it that bad. And I understand we're working towards funding and all these things, and I agree we should. And we're putting that all in our plans. This is how we're thinking about trying to get there. This is the idea, this is the vision of how to get there. But they need to understand the obstacles we're up against, not just where we're going to get help to do it.
Well, that's our job. To look at those regulations and say, well, wait a minute, do they apply today? Or if we're looking at redoing that, do we maybe just need to add some different kinds of businesses that are available today that weren't when that was written, or maybe there are things, but that's our job to consider that.
Right. All right, on page 87, the second paragraph, recreation and conservation associated with RC zoning district. Just let me read part of this to you. The recreation and conservation area is a substantial portion of the southern half of Whitewater Township. The state of Michigan owns much of the land in this area, which is associated with the Pierre Marquette State Forest. Mainly privately owned tracts throughout this area provide home sites on larger lots. And then it says 5 acres or more in parentheses. Well, at this point, I think there should be like something that says except lakefront properties like Island Lake. And I'm not sure about Truex. I wanted to look that up, see how big those lots are. I'm not sure.
I checked, they're under 5 acres.
Yeah,
I
okay,
checked.
so I think these things should be pointed out at this point, so that our facts are right. At that point. And now on the map, on the very next page, I think the high density and industrial colors are too close together. The brown and the gray are, the definition on the page is kind of tough to see what you're looking at. So I think we should change one or the other of those colors to something different that shows up better for us. We didn't, on this map, I don't see that the empty development on the southeast corner of Broomhead and 72 is marked, or it doesn't have a definition. It doesn't
Hang
have a
on,
color.
development on, you said where again? Broomhead?
Broomhead Road
Yep.
and M72. The piece that Kim owns, Kim and her husband own.
Oh, okay, so that's a ways.
It's
Yeah.
just off the corner, but it's on the southeast corner.
Okay,
That doesn't seem to be marked on here. It seems like, I know there's no houses in there, but it's zoned. It's for one of these places we're trying to highlight. Shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should. I'll double check that because I'll check what that density is because it looks, I remember seeing it, they're platted, but there's no homes there, right?
Right, yes. Yeah, it shows up even here, you can see the roads in there, so, and I know there's no, but it is zoned, and so I think it should show on this.
The intent was to call out those areas as we did.
Right, here's
Oh,
72 and
Room had 72, we're talking about this,
south of,
this piece probably right here.
oh, okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So that is zoned residential.
I see these little
Yeah.
green lines through it. That might be it.
She's, I forget the number of lots in there, but they've got it all, divided out and figured out. I think their plan is to build their own houses, and I don't know that they're started on any of them yet, but,
Is that fairly recent? Is that,
No, it's from quite a while.
yeah, this is over a year, this is quite a long time ago that, yeah.
Is it agricultural? Is that?
Mike, this is Kim. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah.
What is your parcel on the southeast corner of, Broomhead and 72? What is that zoned?
That is zoned ag.
So the subdivision isn't zoned, in any of these categories on our map? It shouldn't be covered on any of
It's
these?
still on your future land use map. It would be in the ag district. It is ag zoning, and at this moment, it complies with all of the rules and regulations of the ag district.
Oh,
right,
so,
so it's correct then.
so it's correct, okay.
But it should be a lighter green then.
It's ag, but if you change the zoning requirements for ag district, it's not gonna
It's
accommodate
40,000
that.
Square feet.
They're 1 acre, 1 to 2 acre lots.
Right.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, thanks, Kim.
Yep.
Certainly.
All right, I was wrong there. On page 90, I was curious why we mentioned the High Point Golf Course, thing. I don't understand what, how that works into the master plan. So I just was curious why we're mentioning that.
Was just a significant development. Doesn't need to be in there. I don't think. I mean, do you?
I don't have a problem with it. I just,
Okay.
when I
mean,
read it, I'm like,
It's a
this
20,
type-
it's probably one of the biggest projects to happen in Whitewater Township in many, many years. It's
Right.
$24 million worth. Well, it's not all Whitewater. but that's
no,
the thing.
yeah.
But-
A
what-
large part of that will be because of the construction, the buildings are gonna be here.
What it does show is moving forward in progress for the township.
Yeah, I think it-
No, I don't have a problem with being there. I just.
Yeah.
I had a hard time, I didn't understand why.
Yeah, we don't generally call that out, but since that was so substantial,
Right, okay.
It might be nice to note in there how many acres of property that is. I don't,
In Whitewater.
I mean, we've got the cost of it, but
It's in Whitewater.
yeah.
oh, they expanded it. Probably in some of the, in that package that we had for the approval a couple months ago.
Yeah, I've got a copy.
So, on page 91, the heading to this category is planning strategies, which it happens to be on page 90, but my question is on page 91. The very last paragraph there, development of adversary rural design manual. I'm curious about this. Is this just like a manual that we're coming up with, or is this a manual we're deferring people to?
This is a manual that, well, there's ones out there we can start with for one thing, but it would be something that we would develop both in terms of designing PUDs as well as material that Gary produced for individual lots. So the idea is to provide some guidance, which it could be actually in the ordinance itself, but But if there was a design manual that says, we prefer to preserve, when you're clustering residential development in a PUD, that what features are you trying to preserve? Which are most important? Is it views? Is it trees? Is it, what's the objective here if you're trying to do that? It's, so,
So basically, these are just suggestions, in this paragraph, it's just suggestions like the turf grass thing and the limited impervious surfaces,
yes,
stuff like that. Those are just suggestions. They're things we're looking into.
correct.
I thought this section was really helpful to me on understanding how to allow homes, but have it be maintaining the natural landscape. I thought it was, I've read other things on PUDs and found it very difficult to understand. I thought this was easy to understand.
Yep.
Because it compared conventional versus ways in which you preserve more land instead of just having everybody have a big green lawn.
Yep. Lot size is only part of the equation here.
Right.
In this stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was helpful.
So on page 93, in the bottom right corner, there's some very fine print.
Couldn't you read?
I suggest we either enlarge it or delete it. I don't care which.
You're,
It says grass and wildflower.
Wildflowers and grass.
But what does the rest of it say?
Oh, no.
Again, on page 96, when we're talking about high density residentials associated in the R3, my note is talking about the land Perkin and a note somewhere in here about informing the public what's going on there. I think we already just dealt with that. 96. On page 97, under village associated with Z zoning district. Gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 sentences up in the bottom. It says, according to the recent resident survey, residents. And I would like to see some kind of change made here. And this goes back to conversations we had earlier in the night when we were talking about percentages of, when we were talking about the surveys and saying percentages. If we just say surveys hope to see residents hope to see a transformed area. That sounds like all the residents hope to see a transformed area. It's not all the residents, it's some of the residents. Or it's a part of the residents, or it's a third of the residents, or it's half the, I don't know what the number is, but it's not, it sounds like we're saying all the residents. We need to make that sound like it doesn't say all the residents.
Well, it does say the residents that were surveyed.
yeah, but
The chart.
According to the recent resident survey, so that tells you that it was the residents that were surveyed. This was their opinion.
But did all the residents
It's-
say the same thing?
The ones that were surveyed did, and that's what we're referring
No,
to.
no, the majority of the ones.
That were surveyed, yeah.
Yeah, the majority of the ones that were surveyed said that, and that's why we're referencing it.
Mhm.
But not everybody that was surveyed agreed completely with that. Follow me?
Mhm, mhm.
Oh, on page 98. In between the pictures, there's that paragraph. And it said, the second sentence says, Old 72 between Elk Lake Road and the M72. and this appears in the document more than one place. I've seen this 2 or 3 places. It should say new M72, not the M72. Somehow I just doesn't read right for me with the, and being a long time resident here, that's what it is. It's new 72 and old 72. That highway was put in the 60s and there's still some of us that remember it.
We even need to say between Elk Lake Road and new M72.
Well, it does describe what he's talking about, but the M72, like, okay, the M72 where it connects across the Moore Road or where it connects up by the casino? You know what I mean? How about
Well,
we
it's
just
a
say
lot of
M?
words. You could probably just put a map in there and absolve any confusion.
Well, I'm trying to point out that in a few places, we call it the M72.
Okay,
In
yeah, I
in
got
the
that.
document, when we refer to the highway, the new highway, if we're trying to differentiate it from old 72, what it's been called historically in the community is new 72, new
Okay.
M72.
Instead
Yeah,
of-
or the new M72, yeah. that's
Or
fine too.
current, but I think
Yeah.
new,
Enough.
I've driven like,
Yeah.
everybody calls it new 72.
So should we use the word new instead of current?
Pardon?
Is that what we should use as new?
Oh, I don't
I
care.
think just put on the other side of M72 in parentheses, put new.
Yeah.
And then that just shows that, hey, that's what some people call it. I mean, if you need to put it in there at all, I suppose.
What page you on now, Mike?
103.
Woo-wee, here we go. Books.
Thank you.
All right, I'm confused by this, I'm on the very first, topic, zoning plan. It's, the last sentence in that paragraph. It says, the zoning ordinance is the main tool to implement this master plan and explains why zoning regulations are what they are. I thought the zoning regulation explained the regulation. The zoning, the master plan explains why zoning.
We could probably put a period at the end of master plan. It'd be good.
Yeah, something there confused me a little bit.
Yeah. The idea is just that your master plan is the foundation for your zoning.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I understood, but something about it I was having trouble with.
A little clunky.
Holy cow, I can see the end. All right, on page 116. And I think somewhere else in here I saw this too, but it didn't. When I first read it, I questioned it, and then when I read it here, it really dawned on me. The very last paragraph, it talks about Whitewater Township Fire Department. And it says is about 50 years old. Well, I'd like somebody to tell me when that building was built, because I'm 61 and it was not built when I was 11. I can tell you that. It was built a lot closer when I was 20. So I'm sure somewhere we have the information. We know what date was built.
Yeah.
I think we should correct that because that's off by close to a decade.
Double check that.
Okay, now I just want to quickly go through my notes on the end to make sure I missed something. Oh. When we, this is a question I have. And I think it's something that needs to be added to this master plan. Unfortunately, I don't think we can add it to this master plan, so I want to try to do something so that we add it to the next master plan. And as I remember, as I recall, we did not capture we asked people to sign in to our events, But I don't think we captured where they lived, did we? Did we capture what demographic of the community they came from? Who participated? Which segments of our community participated?
Just in this online survey, right, or the? mail
Yeah, we
survey?
asked them on the online survey by
Yeah.
quadrants, remember? We did that, but then,
Oh.
and-
that
so
would
we
be
have that
interesting
information.
info.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we talked about that once already.
right, because we were curious if issues were tight, we might want to see how people north of 72 think versus south or whatever, so.
And I think, I think that's a very important piece of information that needs to be in this document, because if we don't mention who in the community is steering the community, then the people that come after us don't know. I mean, it should be a part of the information. Who is steering this? Because if you look at the crowd that was there, I saw very few young families. Okay, very few working Joes. There's some of the farming community there. There's a lot of the retirement community there. There's a lot of the new people to the community there. But a lot of the stable working people in the community, the working class people in the community, I didn't feel were there and represented. And we didn't capture that information, so we can't say that. But I think it's important that we figure out a way to make sure that information gets added as this thing grows into the future.
So add another column or two on the check-in sheet as to, maybe your age, children's school, where you are in life.
Yeah, maybe which zoning district you live in or you represent, or it should be kind of generic. I mean, I don't want to go and give my home address out everywhere I sign in. But seems like there could be a generic way of asking for that information. And
Could you have them to have like a map there and then put like something
Yeah,
on the, like a
yeah.
dot on the map, say I live here, and then
I
you're
live in
not,
this area,
then you're
right?
not seeking
You just,
information
it's
you're
just
not
like
gonna
the
wanna give.
green pins we had on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
Oh, this is really not about
You
tonight.
ask for too much, you're just not gonna get it sometimes.
Check-in sheet with. For residents.
Another thing at the end of this document, I think we should make a brief statement, which is kind of went around the table a couple times tonight. This is a flexible document. I know it's kind of made at the beginning, but I don't know how other people read, but like by the time I get to the end of something like this, I don't remember what I read on the first 3 pages, 10 or 15 pages. So a reminder at the end of this, to me, seems appropriate that this is a flexible document, and the next round of this stuff may prove out different things, and this, should let me see, how did I put this here? This is more of a suggestion from the point of view in time that we are in, rather than a rock solid vision into the future.
Nicely said.
I mean, we're talking about what we see right now, but 10 years from now, when they redo this, they could be looking at a whole different picture. And we should.
Well,
Wouldn't hurt
that's
to
what-
say that
that's
we know
why
that,
it's-
and the next group of people should know that too.
Yeah. But that's why it's supposed to be reviewed every 5 years.
Yeah.
To capture that. 'Cause
Well,
you-
right, but a lot of the, what we see in this room, the public comes in here and they say, it's not in the master plan, we can't do it. Well, there's a lot of things that came through this community that weren't being done before.
Right.
But situations changed, and the things came into the community. So, people need to be reminded that just because it ain't in the master plan doesn't mean that there isn't some way to work it in there.
Right. But as I saw up at Torch Lake, when they wanted to put in a big campground there, what they said, it doesn't fit our master plan. So that's a double-edged sword, you know, and I agree with you 100%, just because it's not in there. Say, wait a minute, this is something we never thought of.
Right.
But on the other hand, you have the master plan that says keep this low density rural. So if somebody wants to come in and put a big apartment complex in, it's not consistent with our master plan and what people want. So I don't, you know, you're right. It has to be updated, but this whole area could change in the next 10 years. Being developed, it's one of the best places in the country for retirement, for starting a business. A lot of things could change, you know.
Well, I think about the time we get done with this, we're gonna probably start looking at the next one already. I really do, because things will be changing.
Right.
And we'll have to probably start taking notes and for the next one.
And the one last topic I want to touch on, I see support in the work we did and the old survey from the first master plan for some type of looking into figuring out or whatever it is we do towards working towards the sewage problems around our lake. In both surveys, it's large numbers of people that say water, keeping the water good in this area is important to them, okay? So maybe they're not saying sewers are important to me, the sewers thing around the lakes is important, but when they say taking care of the water, they are saying that. And again, as a lifelong resident in this community, the slime on the bottom of these lakes was not here until these lake lots started becoming permanent residences. And I believe the sewage is a part of it, and I believe all the fertilizer being dumped along the shoreline is part of it. I'm not a scientist, I can't prove any of that, but I'm telling you, that's what's different today from yesteryear. And the bottom of that lake is different.
What I have observed, and I've been here 50 years, started out, not as a year-round cottage, but a little over 20 years ago, they permit. What happened is when those mussels came, when our natural clams went away, is when all that crud and I years ago mentioned that I was helping with the surveying for the water clarity out. Tom, I can't remember his last name, but I asked him about that and he took a sample. Oh, we had a meeting on it last summer, the ELSA, and they don't know, they still don't know what it is exactly and what's causing it. But my recollection is when those zebra mussels came in and killed off all of our clams, ate all their food. That's what happened, is when it changed. And I'm absolutely, I believe that. So, and, but we've surveyed the water quality every few years. ELSA pays somebody to go around and, they're out there looking at it, and the clarity is still very good. But yeah, that stuff on the bottom bugs the heck out of me.
Look, I grew up with men in the construction industry, built many structures all around this region, and the practices that they were using back in the day, before there were all these regulations, were not good, and some of them systems are still intact. And even some of the systems that have been built since then aren't really the greatest. And if we're really gonna protect the water, with what's happening to our area, it's something we really should be thinking about. And I see in the data, I see support for it. People don't want to pay for it. When you ask them, about paying for it, oh no, they don't want to pay for it. But they say they want to keep the water clean, and that's a big part of it. Okay, and then so now I'm gonna change the topic just a little bit, but in my point, this is part of what makes this relevant to bring this up. 2 surveys in a row for 2 different master plans, this was a topic that was important to people, and here we are today, still not doing anything about it. Or very little, okay?
I don't
In
agree
one,
with
wait
that.
a second, let me finish, Carl. The first survey, a decade ago, when they talked about 1 acre lots in the agricultural district, no problem. Smooth sailing went through, no problem. This time, a decade later, narrowly, now people don't want it. And now we're in a big fuss over this 1 acre or 5 acres in the agriculture district. Okay, for 2 decades, people have been saying water quality is important to us. We're not doing anything about the sewers around the lakes, and that is a huge part of it.
But we have an opportunity.
Right,
I mean,
and that's why I'm saying, I think it should be a little stressed a little more in this.
I'm just saying, we have opportunity just in this short-term rental thing.
Well, when
I
I
mean,
put it,
anybody that wants to, I mean, if you're talking about regulations for short-term rental, you know, adding something in there that says, well, if you want to do it, you have to bring your septic system up to
yeah,
state standards
Right.
or county standards or whatever. So there are little things that we can keep doing on that.
Well, but in the master plan, because this is supposed to be the vision looking forward,
Right.
we should be making a stronger statement about looking towards the sewage situation.
Well, I think everybody knows a real fix to it is probably a city sewer system.
Mhm.
And we don't have the money and we're probably not gonna have the money. So
Well,
that's
You guys.
the problem.
we've done it. When I built, before I built a new house, here before, we put in a new septic system. And it's a pump back system way back to the road. I no longer see people's, dryer or washer suds in the lake. The lake is very much cleaner than when I started. When we moved that septic system back, all the algae near the shore went away. So yes, things have been done by requiring these new septic systems. So that's been done. Putting in a sewer system, that's not gonna happen. It is important to make sure everybody does come up with the new septic systems.
So I want to thank Mike for his detailed comments, but I do think we need to stop this discussion at this point because it is getting late. And, you know, we're at 2.5 hours. So who else has comments that they wanted to share with the group? Okay.
I just have one. I thought this was fabulous. I went through it and I saw a couple items that I would be nitpicking and other people brought them up. I just saw some fabulous document. It was much better than what I had anticipated, which I thought would be good, but this is really good.
What's he trying to say?
Thank you, I think.
I think the vision and goals for the township, laying out the timeline of, you know, there's several that are short term. And to accomplish those, do you have an idea for that? And just a brief note on you don't know where people live when they made the comment. Maybe we have this for public comment.
Oh, yeah.
With the people.
Yeah.
Good. So I do have a couple comments and I'm sorry. Do you want to go first?
No,
think you
sorry,
should
I
go
just had
first.
one, but
Okay, why don't you go first?
the only thing, I mean, everybody's talked about a lot of different things and I might be totally wrong on this, but when we talk about like the PUDs and the developments and stuff that we like to see, is there developments in our own township that we can use instead of?
You mean for examples? Is that
Yes,
what you mean?
you know, something that we can say, hey, you know, this is great. This is in our community and this is what we want to see. Or is it that not a good idea compared to just putting a generic?
I think we used Millbrook in the past as an example of something well done.
I think
Yeah.
there's another PUD up off of Elk Lake Road and I don't know much about it. Like,
There is, but unfortunately, I wouldn't hold them up as examples.
Okay,
I mean,
Either
just
one.
from the regulatory standpoint, I mean, the
That's why that was my
ordinance
only
is
okay.
problematic at many
That makes
levels.
sense. Good.
I think the only problem with citing Millbrook is they've got a lot of big signs about, like restricted access of driving through there. You're not supposed to be driving through there unless you're visiting somebody. And if you cite them, people might start driving through there, I don't know.
Yep, our PUD ordinances need overhaul.
Renee, did you have a comment? Okay. All right, I have a couple comments and I'm gonna try and be extremely brief about this, so let me hand a few of these out to you guys. That way you can read them, and I would say my comments are more in the vein of questions, because I wasn't here for all of, the stuff that you've done up to this point. So. Here's. Cheryl.
Here's one here for sure.
Good enough.
There was an extra one.
So I'm not gonna dwell on these too long. So the first one I have is on page 65. And it has to do with, the statement, that, before I get to this page, I got sticky pads everywhere. I was a little concerned with the strength of the wording, where it caught my eye right away. In the second paragraph down, it says, in terms of development design, higher density subdivisions were rejected. And so I just think that's a pretty strong word. It's very negative. And so right away, the question is I know we have some, and other people have brought this up too. I know we have some data on how many no's versus yeses. Okay. I think it's really helpful to just use data when at all possible. And I believe this came out mostly in a workshop, but maybe it came out in the survey also. But I know that I've talked to a lot of people about, there's a lot of discussion right now about housing developments in the community. And I do think it's helpful to just ask people, there's this subdivision over here by M72 and Cook Road. Do you find that an offensive subdivision? Like some people, when I read this, it sounds like, nope, nobody wants any single family subdivisions of approximately a half an acre, which is what the size of the lots is over here at Maple Meadows and Wintergreen Heights. And I just think my question, I'm not telling people what to do. My question are those words accurately communicating how the entire community feels? Because it's saying it's rejected. And right away, I thought about Truax Lake, and I thought about the development over here, that a lot of those lots in those areas are around a half an acre. And is that something that we truly want to completely reject in the future of the township? It's a pretty strong statement.
This kind of goes to what I was talking about with making it sound like everybody rejected it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
That's the
The
thing.
statistics should be there by this much.
yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
I agree with that fully.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
guess, so, yeah, the data is helpful.
And anywhere in the document where we can do that, instead of saying rejected or, nobody wants to see this, if we can use the numbers instead of the harsh word. Anywhere in the document, I think it was smart for us to do that.
Go ahead, Randy.
I was gonna say, I think the term down at the bottom where it says less support for high density, or might be more appropriate than,
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yes.
So I understand that a lot of people, anybody that drives down Hammond Road or goes to Chum's Corners is scared, okay? I'm scared. When I go down there, I just sit there and I go, oh my goodness, how will the road support this? I mean, I shudder to think when the people start occupying all of that housing. And I understand that people don't want that kind of a look, okay? And I understand that people are concerned about that kind of development migrating out here. I understand that concern. I just want to make sure we're accurate and that people, that we're not assuming that nobody wants a subdivision anywhere in this township ever.
right? That's not the case.
Because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
All right,
that's-
enough said. All right. So the next one I had is on page 74. And this was also just a question because I haven't been involved in this till now. This big picture with the 4 on it. My first question is, are these in prioritized order? Because it sure looks like it to me. And I don't know, is that the priority? Is category 1, respect the rights of the township residents and property owners? Is that the first priority based on data? Like, I didn't know if it was just a visual we chose or if it is specifically a prioritized list.
It was just a visual that comes from the existing master plan that identified those things as goals, and they're really not goals because they're just statements. I mean, they're not really a
Mhm.
goal in a strict sense of the word. It's just,
Yeah, so,
so that's what seemed to resonate with people, and that's why we carried it forward.
okay,
And that particular one being number 1 would make sense, prioritize or not, because in all of our outreach to everybody, at least my experience and the pins on the boards said to me, that was the number 1 issue, the number 1 statement that people made. Everybody said, I want my property rights respected.
mhm,
Some people were for this issue and not for this issue, and some people were for that issue and not for the issue, but everybody was about the property rights being preserved.
mhm.
And that was my comment about, I love the very first part of this chapter, how you, talked about that, because I was getting concerned that that wasn't gonna get enough emphasis.
So Renee, you have something to say?
Oh, I actually don't agree with you on that. I didn't find that to be the case with everybody at the open house. You know, I mean, because we're talking about clarity and numbers, right?
Mhm.
So to say that everybody had that as their number 1.
I should say the people that talked to me, the people that talked to me,
I think.
and I didn't see any red dots on the protect.
No, I agree with you. There were no red dots, but I'm just saying, I don't think it was number 1 for everybody.
If you just take out the numbers and call it the big 4. Just call it the big 4.
Four
Yeah.
in the title, Whitewater Township 4 planning principles. And then take out. what
Just take out the numbers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. If you took out the numbers, I just thought it inferred that. And I mean, if we have data that says that's the right
don't.
order, that's great.
I don't,
We don't.
the existing master plan didn't have anything.
I do think the first 2 are correct. One, I think 1 and 2 are the most important from talking to people, but,
Anyway, I did that.
okay. But I do think, yeah, anything we can do to make that visual be less leading of the witness, I think it's, because if we don't have the data, we don't have that. Okay, the other thing, I just want to say this, just for food for thought. I counted about 9 1 to 2 year goals, which was a lot. Okay, that was almost 50% out of like 22. I'm not sure that that's realistic. So my next question that came to mind was, how are we going to prioritize these? You know, typically prioritization has that there is a process to prioritize, especially if you have more than what you can do. And so I just thought, some thought has to be given towards how easy or hard is the task to do. And so ease of doing it as well as effort, which is slightly different than ease.
And importance.
And
Yeah.
importance,
the-
what's the
yeah.
impact?
Pressing thing.
Excellent. So that's,
Yes.
usually you use 3 characteristics to prioritize. So I'm just throwing that out. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, maybe we need to, I did see some of these said 1 to 3, and I wasn't sure if it was a typo or if it was actually
I honestly didn't put much thought into that. I just
Okay.
kind of what was seemed to me sooner.
So, this is kind of an issue that maybe people want to think about. Okay. And then the last one is my easiest one. I was reading along and I ran into this at the one workshop I attended. All of a sudden, there was a lot of zoning terminology that is in this document. And it started popping out with R1 district, A district, and all these other districts, and then I had to go find my zoning map with the code, okay, and then the definition sheet here. And I would just say that somewhere before you start talking about that, somewhere we should have the zoning map from the last master plan should be inserted appropriately to provide definitions. And I think that this page that I gave you too, that defines minimum lot area and road frontage, I think those two characteristics to me are things that I really identify with when I think about parcel and usage. I think about road frontage, acreage, all that. So I just think it would be easier for people to read and understand if you provide that.
I'd like to revisit the issue of putting a zoning map in there because we're still in the process of reviewing that.
Right. Yeah.
Right,
Errors.
but at the time at which we put it in.
Okay.
I don't know that at this level of granularity that you're going to detect.
Well,
I hope you don't detect an error, but
how,
I mean,
how far out is our
Right.
new map?
I talked to him on Monday and he's just about done.
So there's a possibility you could have it done in time to get it in this? I mean, maybe, maybe not, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Well, that was gonna be my comment. I think the new, if we put any zoning map in, it should be the new, one,
Right.
not the old.
right. And that's fine too, but I just think that it would help the understandability of the average guy. When I was at the workshop, there were a lot of people, probably including me, that had to think pretty hard about that, and it's just a familiarity thing. And I just think the more we can educate people about this, the better, because it's important that people understand it if they're gonna start giving a lot of opinions about it. Okay, that's all I had. Is anybody else?
The last one.
Mhm.
With, you look at a map, but you're not quite sure where, if you're in that zone, if there was a list of roads that were in the zone for like agricultural or
The new map will have that.
they have all those names.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of times I found I had to have a road map.
Yeah,
I had a county road map in front of me and I had the zoning map to try and, because I was getting confused too.
I think the new map's gonna bring a whole
Be
lot of
better.
clarity. to
that would be wonderful.
Okay. Keith, did we get your items? Oh, yeah, you were the PUD guy. Okay. All right. Sorry, I think that's it for that. Let me get back to my agenda. So is there anything else related to the master plan that anybody has for discussion here? Okay. Go ahead.
One classification map,
Yes.
that came from the county.
Right.
When I look at this, are these the official legend? And then as I look at the colors on here, there's a question about private road. I look at outright trail. It's the same designation as county. Well, I don't see private roads on this map, not.
Yeah. I don't think they are. I mean, that is the road commission's map, as I understand it.
You have the north, of
And the
the
north
trail.
side is all
That's all,
private.
that's all private.
I don't know if that needs to be clarified.
What page is that on?
44.
You have a question, you come up the microphone, they can't hear you on Zoom.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, come on up.
On page 44, map 8, the definition of private roads or the designation of private roads is not on here. And for someone like myself, it's somewhat confusing in the sense that I think it's a local road. Now, it's not a local road, it's a private road. And I would have to assume that probably happens throughout the whole township.
We won't.
Uh-huh.
right?
Well, it shouldn't be. I don't, if the road commission identified it,
It says access road is the green line,
Oh,
which is
oh,
the
So-
majority of them.
yeah, mine was on it.
But is, you see, this is the county road and then that stretch.
Oh,
And then this going north here. It's a problem.
Linda, I have one thing when they're done.
okay. I'll look into that.
Okay.
I do have one point to raise.
Yep.
So I did, in our last meeting, we talked about the MPO. And there was the question about the designation of the MPO and the presentation we heard. And so I followed back up with Barry Hicks, who you might remember was involved with us. He's now the MPO program manager for Networks Northwest. So he's familiar with what's going on here. So I asked him about the question of the MPO boundaries and so forth. I did get a clarification from him on that. And it turns out that the terminology is Whitewater Township is located in the metropolitan planning area. That was defined and is eligible to be in the MPO. Now, that's a choice that the township makes, but we are in the metropolitan planning area. So that's a distinction to make here, and it's still open to us in the future if we want to join the MPO and be part of that transportation planning conversation. But I'm going to make that clarification in the
Okay.
master plan. So I think it's not clear. He said everything else was consistent.
So previously you thought that we were outside the bounds of the,
I thought we were in the MPO, and I thought that's what Mr. Carson told us, but we are in the metropolitan planning area. But that's not the same as the metropolitan planning organization.
oh. So we're on the fringe is what you're saying.
There's a,
I think what they're saying is we're in the area, but we're not represented
We-
in the area.
and we're eligible to be part of the MPO, but so that was that confusion, I think, in the last meeting. And I
But
probably
would it be
contributed to it.
different if we joined? Then
Yes.
would we be in the area? Oh, okay, okay.
So we're in the area, but we're not part of the organization.
We're not
So-
part of, okay.
So we don't
I
have
think
a
I'm
seat
with
at the
you on your
table, so to
terms
speak.
now. So it's geographical area versus
Yes.
participating. Okay. All right, and you had
I
something
just
else?
wanted to, you made a great point about having 9 items, and a 1 to 2. What are we gonna do about that? And I think, what I would hate to see is us to produce this document that we can't even do. So should we get together and look at that, and try to prioritize that and see what we're gonna do there, or?
So, we could add it to our May agenda for discussion. That would give everybody a couple weeks to kind of think about it, about how you would approach choosing. And I think some people threw out some good ideas. Does that sound
Yes.
good for a first step? Okay, so let me write that down.
Break the ones of the first 9.
Yeah. I would just like to see us to be able to accomplish what we put forward.
All right. So with that, like I said earlier, our next meeting is May 1st at 7 PM. The deadline to contact me to add something to the agenda along with any supporting information will be Monday, the 22nd. I'll do the packet on the 23rd to publish it on the 24th, which is 1 week in advance of the meeting. So sorry for the short timeline, but that's the nature of having mid-month meetings here.
I just have that definition page for the,
I was gonna ask you if you were gonna have
yes.
that. You are gonna have that.
yeah, and you want that by the 22nd?
Yes.
Got it done, I just gotta read.
Okay, so let me just make sure. I think I already have that on here, but.
Know
let
what
me
today
check.
is, what is today, 18th, oh yeah. Okay, I'll have it to you by Monday.
Yes, I did have the bylaws in there already. Okay, good. All right, so with that, we're back to public comment again. So we could start in the town hall if you'd like to step up and have your last words here.
I am your new zoning administrator. My name's Deb Graber. I am very impressed that you guys actually read your master plan. I've been to a number of meetings where they just kind of let the planner just push it right through and then you dealt with it later. But it's, you know, I'm really impressed. So, if you have questions, or if you need my help with anything, if you, have a couple things I'd like to add to that schedule of regulations too.
Okay.
Size of the build, minimum square footage, that type of thing. So I've got a couple things I'd like to see added to it as well. So, but, good job.
Okay,
I know it's a long meeting.
thank you. Welcome.
I'm Michael Sherman. I'm at 8596 Church Street. I just wanted to thank the commission for their due diligence and comments, and the initial draft that I was able to review was very comprehensive, and I appreciate the amount of effort and time that everyone's putting into it. I wanted to know, is there any timeline to completion of this? Do you have any idea of goals to have this master plan completed?
Well,
That's a big question.
poor Randy had
Yeah.
3 hours of comments.
Yeah.
I think our
Well-
goal had been
June,
to,
July.
to get it to the board
Okay, well, that's great.
summer.
So there is a process, and we can talk about that maybe in May, but at the meeting of the process to go forward, it is rather lengthy and cumbersome for the adoption of the master plan. There's like a 63-day comment period for adjacent jurisdictions, there's public hearing, so, you know, the process kind of slows down quite a bit.
Sure, understood.
Unfortunately,
Well, that's a
just,
lot quicker than I thought.
just
So
because of the.
good luck with that.
But it kind of illustrates the need to, I mean, we've given him just a ton of updates. And so it kind of illustrates the need for all of us to support him and help him with that.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great photos. I was
Like the
really
picture?
impressed with all the pictures in the map.
Anybody else in the hall? Okay, anybody on Zoom?
Oh, we got a hand up, Kim.
Okay, Kim. you're
Hi
up.
there. I wanted to congratulate you all on a great meeting. Been there, done that. No, it's not an easy thing. And Linda, you're jumping in with both feet. And it looks like you're already up to speed. So good job. I have just a couple quick comments. One that I missed earlier, page 41, your addressing of floodplains. Just, it caught me that, you did not address the fact that there's a specific reason that floods are not an issue in Whitewater Township. And it isn't identified in the master plan. And that reason is the dam in Elk Rapids. The second we don't have a dam in Elk Rapids, A, we lose our lake. But B, that's the big thing that keeps our waterfront from having a lot of our flooding issues, because if there's a lot of water, they just open the dam. We let more water out. We don't have the seasonality of flood and recession that most places do because of that dam. It would probably behoove us to have a commentary in support of maintaining that dam, because every few years they do start talking about ripping it out. So just something, since we are addressing floodplains, you might want to address. My other comment is just a general note of information for the Planning Commission as a whole of the state of where we're at right now. And I'm sure a lot of you are aware there was a lot of discussion of the schools and the loss of kids and the economic impact, and that is very appropriate for you to be looking at that for all of these guidelines. But a little, I guess, reality check at the moment for the economic state of Whitewater Township. Currently, there is one house in all of Whitewater Township that is offered for sale, one single family home under $1 million. If you put $1 million in Whitewater Township as your maximum search, for a home listed for sale, you will get one property. You want to know why the school is empty? You want to know why we're not having young families at meetings? $1 million is not a normal buy-in for a community. So I was shocked when I was told that. I looked it up. I didn't blame him. I actually looked it up myself. And the one listing has just been listed. It was none. It was 0 listings. So please keep that in mind as you're going through this. That is not, even for a wealthy township, that's not a realistic number. Great job. Keep up the good work. Take care.
Okay, anybody else? No? Okay, any final commission discussion or comments that anybody has? Everybody looks tired. Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll support it.
Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Aye. Thank you.
I don't know if it looks to be an individual.
Uh,
I believe I'm.